They say animals just know, that they feel what we miss, smell what we hide. And sometimes when the world turns its back, they're the ones who step up and do what no human will. At 6:42 a.m. in the dry burn of a Phoenix summer, a battered German shepherd with cloudy eyes and a limp walked straight through the sliding doors of St. Joseph's Hospital. He didn't bark, he didn't growl, but he was carrying a black plastic garbage bag in his mouth. And inside that bag was a newborn baby. Nurse Erin Caldwell had just finished triage on a heat stroke case when she heard the receptionist scream. She turned half expecting another intoxicated patient or someone trying to dodge a cop. Instead, she saw a dog big and weathered padding steadily across the linoleum as if he'd done this before. "Security," someone shouted. "Get that stray out of here." Erin froze, not because of the dog, she liked dogs, but because of what dangled from his mouth. That garbage bag wasn't full of trash. It was swinging too gently, too carefully. "Easy," she said, approaching slowly, eyes never leaving the shepherd. He didn't back away. He didn't charge. He lowered the bag gently at her feet and then took 3 slow steps back. People were shouting. Phones were out. A security guard reached for his pepper spray. Erin dropped to her knees. When she opened the bag, her hands started to shake. "Oh my God," she whispered. Inside was a newborn girl, umbilical cord still attached, wrapped in a blood-stained towel, barely moving, lips bluish, skin cold. The dog just stood there watching, silent, solid, waiting. 8 minutes later, the ER was chaos. Alarms, shouts, medical staff rushing to stabilize the infant. The baby was quickly placed under warming lights, a crash cart nearby. Der Stephen Hale, Erin's longtime mentor, was barking orders like a field general. "How the hell did she get here?" he demanded. Erin motioned towards the dog, who now sat quietly in the corner of the lounge like some kind of ghost soldier. "He brought her in." "Brought her in." Hale blinked. "That dog." He walked through the front doors carrying the baby and placed her right at my feet. The ER staff didn't know what to do with the dog. Security wanted animal control. A few nurses were scared, but Erin refused to let him go. Something about him, the calm in his eyes, the way he moved it, felt familiar. Not just trained, disciplined. She knelt beside him. "What's your story, boy?" she murmured. When she brushed back his fur, she felt a bump under his ear. Pushing aside the grime, she found an old tattoo. A K9 unit number. Flash forward 15 minutes, the baby girl, now dubbed Grace by the nurses, was stable, but just barely. Mr. Hale had called upstairs to NICU. Erin stayed with the shepherd. "He's not just a stray," she told the head of security. "He's a retired police or military K9. Look at the tattoo." The guard grunted. "Still shouldn't be in a hospital." Erin narrowed her eyes. "He carried a dying infant 20 blocks through Phoenix. He's staying until I say otherwise." Let me pause here and say, if you believe in second chances and courage, and in heroes who walk on 4 legs, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Heroes for Animals right now, and don't miss the rest of this incredible real-life story. Let's keep these stories alive. Detective Luis Navarro arrived within the hour, notebook in hand, brow furrowed. "So he said a dog just walked in with a baby?" "Yup," Erin replied. "Any idea where he came from?" "None, but I don't think this was random." Navarro crouched beside the dog, who didn't flinch. "Military or police," Erin said. "I was a combat medic in Iraq. I treated a few like him. He moves like a soldier." She paused. "He reminds me of one we lost after a raid. Never found him, but they never confirmed his death either." Navarro jotted something down. "Well, if that's true, someone out there is going to want to know he's still alive." Later that afternoon, hospital staff reviewed the lobby footage. It showed the dog limping up to the automatic doors and waiting, actually waiting for them to open as an elderly couple exited. Then with surgical precision, he walked through the halls, past reception, down the corridor, right to the nurses' lounge where Erin just happened to be on her 5-minute coffee break. "He knew where he was going," Navarro muttered. "He wasn't wandering. He was delivering." Back in the NICU, baby Grace was breathing on her own. The neonatologist, Dr. Peterson, was cautiously optimistic. She was less than 12 hours old, born somewhere nearby, not in a hospital. Whoever gave birth to her didn't clamp the cord properly, shoelace job. The detective's jaw clenched. "That's attempted murder." Erin nodded, but somehow, this dog found her, carried her, and chose this hospital. That night, Erin stayed after her shift. She brought the boy, who she'd unofficially named Ranger, to the on-call room with her. He curled up near the door, guarding it like it was his post. "Why me?" she whispered into the dark. "Why here?" Ranger didn't move, but he blinked slowly, watching her with his one good eye as if he knew something she didn't. And maybe he did. At 3:12 a.m., while most of Phoenix slept beneath a blanket of stale heat and city lights, a small baby girl lay in a neonatal incubator, fighting for her life. Nurse Erin Caldwell hadn't left the hospital in over 20 hours. She paced quietly outside the NICU, sipping from a vending machine coffee she didn't really want. Ranger the dog lay curled at her feet like a statue carved from scars and muscle barely twitching, even when the overhead lights flickered. She couldn't shake the image. She had a black garbage bag in his mouth, a newborn inside. That wasn't random. That was intentional. Someone had trusted that dog more than any human being. Detective Luis Navarro arrived again just after sunrise, holding a printed crime scene report in one hand and a paper bag with breakfast burritos in the other. "I brought you one," he said, offering it up. "Egg and green chile, not hospital food." Erin gave a tired smile. "You really know how to charm a girl." "I try." He motioned toward the hallway. "We found her." Erin straightened. "The mother." Navarro nodded. "Young woman, Jessica Lane, pediatric nurse. Worked here down the hall from you. She died by suicide 2 hours before the dog showed up." Erin covered her mouth with her hand. I I knew her. Not well. She was quiet, polite, always picked up extra shifts. Nobody knew she was pregnant, no, Navarro said. Not her supervisor, not her friends, nobody. She gave birth alone in her apartment, cut the cord herself with kitchen scissors maybe. Then she put the baby in that bag. Erin looked away, and somehow that dog knew. Navarro nodded toward Ranger, who lifted his head at the sound of their voices. We don't know how long he'd been watching her, but we found a bag of open canned food on her back porch. It wasn't for her. She'd been feeding him, Erin murmured. He trusted her. Or Navarro said she trusted him. Later that morning, the hospital staff gathered for a closed-door meeting. Dr. Stephen Hale led the briefing along with the hospital's risk officer and legal counsel. The hospital was trying to stay ahead of the media storm. A stray dog carrying a baby into a hospital that was already viral. Erin's name hadn't leaked yet, but cameras were starting to show up. "We need to be careful," said Patricia Marks, the hospital's lawyer. "This is a tragic situation involving a former employee, but it's also a potential liability." Dr. Hale cut her off. "A newborn was abandoned, a nurse died, and we're talking lawsuits." Patricia's face tightened. "We're talking damage control." Erin raised a hand. "What happens to the baby?" "For now," Dr. Hale said, "she's a ward of the state. CPS is reviewing temporary placement options." "She has a name," Erin said quietly. "Grace." That afternoon, Erin made a call she hadn't made in years to a contact from her old Army days. Mitchell, the voice on the other end, said, "Been a while, you okay?" "I think I found a dog from a K-9 unit I treated back in Iraq," she said. "Same scars, same tattoo. Still, protecting people." The line went silent for a moment. "Then send me a picture of his ear. If it's him, he shouldn't even be in the U.S. without a handler." "I think his handler might be alive," Erin said, "and looking for him." At 5:45 p.m., Detective Navarro returned. His eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, but he was holding something new, a sealed plastic bag with a handwritten note. "This was in the bottom of the trash bag," he said. "Forensics missed it at first." Erin unfolded the photocopy with trembling fingers. "Her name is Grace. Please find someone who will love her. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry, Jessica." The handwriting was neat. No signs of panic. It read like a farewell. "She picked the name too," Erin whispered. "She also picked the delivery system," Navarro said. "You." Erin stared at him. "What do you mean?" "We checked Jessica's journal. She had a spiral notebook under her bed. One entry stood out. The dog trusts her. She helped him once. She'll help Grace too." By 9:00 p.m., the story had leaked. News vans gathered outside St. Joseph's. The headlines were everywhere: "Retired K-9 saves newborn in dramatic rescue." "Mystery dog carries baby to ER. From war zone to hero, the Phoenix miracle." Social media exploded with speculation. Some called it fake. Others dubbed Ranger a guardian angel. One post with over 2 million views simply read, "We don't deserve dogs." The next morning, Erin walked Ranger to a grassy patch outside the hospital. A nurse had brought him water. Someone else left a donated dog bed near the staff lounge. "You're famous now," she said, scratching under his chin. He leaned into her touch, gently, deliberately. Then she felt it again, the scar behind his right ear. It had been almost 9 years since she helped hold down a wounded K-9 at a combat outpost outside Baghdad. She'd been new, scared and bleeding, but steady. The dog had been hit by shrapnel, eye damage, flank torn up. But he didn't whine. He didn't resist. She remembered whispering to him as the field vet worked, "You're not done, soldier. You're gonna make it. I promise." And now that same scar, that same eye, that same stillness. "Are you him?" she asked softly. Ranger blinked once, then turned his head toward the hospital toward Grace. That afternoon, CPS arrived. A social worker named Maria Lopez entered the NICU with a clipboard and a gentle tone. "We're placing the baby in temporary foster care," she said, "pending medical clearance and investigation." Aaron's gut twisted. "She just got here. She's still healing." Maria nodded. "We understand, but we need to follow process." "She chose me," Aaron said quietly. "Jessica." She left a note. "She named me." Maria's pen paused. "Do you have it?" Navarro stepped forward. "Yes, and I've got more." Jessica left a journal. She was documenting everything. The room fell quiet. "Everything Maria asked." Navarro nodded. "We're going through it now. There may be complications." Back in the break room, Aaron sat alone with Ranger, a copy of Jessica's journal in her hands. She flipped to a page dated 3 weeks ago. "I see them both. The nurse and the dog. Scarred, still serving, still showing up. I wish I had that strength. Maybe I can borrow theirs just long enough to save Grace." Aaron's throat tightened. She looked at Ranger, who met her gaze with unshakable calm. "She didn't just trust you," she said. "She trusted us." Around midnight, Detective Navarro knocked on the on-call room door. "We found him," he said. "Who?" "Ranger's original handler, Officer Eric Walker, retired, living in Tucson. He's been searching for his dog for 3 years." Aaron stood slowly. "Is he coming?" "He's on his way." Back upstairs, Grace was sleeping peacefully. Her monitors were steady. Aaron placed a gentle hand on the incubator. "You're not going anywhere without a fight," she whispered. Behind her, Ranger sat like a sentry, watching, waiting, guarding the smallest soldier he'd ever protected. And maybe Aaron thought the most important one. By the time Eric Walker stepped through the hospital's sliding doors, the storm that had grumbled on Phoenix's horizon all day finally broke. Rain hammered the pavement. Thunder cracked in the distance, shaking the glass panels of St. Joseph's ER. But inside there was silence, except for the moment when Ranger, curled near the NICU entrance, lifted his head. His ears perked, his body stiffened like a coiled spring. Then he let out a sound no one in the hospital had heard from him, yet a high keening whine, low and trembling, impossible to ignore. Aaron was at the nurse's station reviewing charts when she heard it. She turned instantly. Ranger stood staring at the front doors as they opened. And that's when she saw him, soaked to the bone, gripping a pair of crutches, hair plastered to his forehead. "Ranger," the man called, voice raw. "Is that you, buddy?" The dog didn't move at first. He looked to Aaron just for a beat, then back at the man. And then he bolted, a blur of scarred fur and muscle sliding across the tile. Eric dropped one crutch and fell to his knee. Ranger hit him like a freight train, but gently whimpering, tail beating muzzle buried in the man's chest. Aaron watched, rooted to the floor, as something unspoken passed between them. Not just recognition, not just relief. Something deeper, something sacred. The kind of reunion that breaks your heart just so it can grow back bigger. "I knew it," Eric whispered over and over, pressing his face into Ranger's neck. "I knew you were alive. I never stopped looking." They stayed like that for minutes. Visitors stopped to stare. Even the front desk staff, who had been all nerves and rules the day before, stood still, eyes wet. When Eric finally stood with help from Aaron, Ranger remained pressed against his leg like a shadow. "He found a baby," Aaron said softly, "and carried her here. 20 blocks. Eric looked stunned. "He did what?" "Wrapped in a garbage bag. He didn't let go until I took her." Eric blinked rapidly. "That dog's not just trained. He's got something else. Soul, maybe." They both looked down at him. Ranger met their gaze with one eye, as if to say mission still active. They moved to the on-call room to dry off. Eric sat slowly, removing his prosthetic leg to stretch. "He was my partner for 4 years," Eric said. "We were a Unit K-9 Division, Mesa PD. Ranger did bomb detection, missing persons, narcotics. Saved my life twice." "I know." "What happened?" Aaron asked. "Gun bust gone bad," Eric said, voice dull. "Warehouse in Glendale. We breached, shots fired. I took a round to the leg." Ranger broke off to pursue the shooter. "They found me. Never found him." Aaron nodded slowly. "He showed up on the streets a few months later. Jessica Grace's mom had been feeding him behind her apartment." Eric rubbed his face. "Jesus. And all this time I thought..." He couldn't finish. Aaron didn't push. Instead, she pulled out the dog tags she'd found sewn inside Ranger's collar earlier that day. Eric reached for them like they were holy. You kept these, huh? He murmured to the dog. Smart boy. Then his eyes met Aaron's. He was never just a dog, he was family. Upstairs, baby Grace was improving. Her color was better. She no longer needed the ventilator. Nurses rotated every 2 hours to monitor her vitals. But the questions surrounding her situation deepened. Detective Navarro returned to the hospital around 11 p.m., carrying a box marked Evidence, Lane Residence. Inside were Jessica Lane's journals, a USB flash drive, and several envelopes. Navarro placed one envelope in front of Aaron. It's addressed to you. Aaron opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single-page handwritten letter. Aaron, I've seen you. Not just at work, but how you move through the world. Calm, steady, kind. Ranger trusts you, so do I. If something happens to me, please protect her. Her name is Grace. She deserves the kind of love that heals, not the kind that hides things. I know this isn't fair, but I believe in you. Jessica, Aaron's eyes filled. The letter was short, but it landed like a punch to the ribs. She planned this, she whispered. Navarro nodded. She knew exactly what she was doing. The USB drive told the rest of the story. Jessica had secretly recorded 3 conversations with Dr. Victor Alden, her mentor and the chief of surgery at Phoenix Memorial. In the recordings, he threatened her. You'll ruin everything he said in one clip. You think anyone's going to believe you over me? You'll be finished before your career starts. She confronted him about the assault which had occurred at a medical conference in Flagstaff, but he denied everything, claimed she was delusional, unstable. On the final recording, he said, I know your father. He and I go way back. He's not going to let you destroy everything he's built. That one line sent a chill down Navarro's spine. Jessica's father, Henry Lane, was on the board of directors at Phoenix Memorial and a major donor. The next morning, CPS returned, this time with a lawyer representing the Lanes. They were filing for immediate custody of Grace. She's our granddaughter, Henry Lane told Dr. Hale. We have resources, a stable home. She belongs with family. Dr. Hale didn't blink. Her mother named Aaron Caldwell as guardian. That's not legally binding. Neither is money, Aaron muttered. The Lane's attorney stepped forward. We're filing for emergency placement. Aaron Caldwell is not a relative. She has no rights. Navarro intervened. Actually, she has evidence, a letter, a video, and Jessica's journals. Aaron added, she didn't want her child raised in silence and shame. Mrs. Lane, Margaret, said nothing. She stared at the floor, lips trembling. But her husband's face remained stone. We'll see you in court, he snapped. After they left, Aaron sat outside on the hospital bench. Ranger rested his head on her knee. Eric sat beside her, silent. I'm not a mom, Aaron said. I never even thought I'd be one. Eric looked up. Neither did I. They sat like that for a while. In the distance, thunder still rolled. She's going to need someone to fight for her, Aaron said finally. Eric squeezed her hand. Then we fight. Later that afternoon, Dr. Hale pulled Aaron aside with new test results. She's stable, he said of Grace, but we found something. Aaron frowned. What? Dioxin, a small but concentrated dose. Aaron's blood ran cold. She was poisoned. Yes, Dr. Hale said. Someone tampered with her IV, but we caught it early. Navarro appeared behind them, face tight. Security footage shows several people came near the NICU this morning, including Henry Lane. Aaron's hands clenched into fists. He tried to kill her to gain custody. We can't prove that yet, Navarro said, but we're working on it. That evening, Aaron returned to the NICU. Grace was awake barely, but her eyes were open. Aaron placed a hand on the incubator and whispered, You're tougher than any of us. Ranger sat at her side, alert, unblinking. Eric leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. You know, he said he still thinks he's working, like he never retired. Aaron smiled through the ache in her chest. Maybe he isn't retired. She looked back at Grace. Maybe none of us are. By the time Aaron Caldwell walked into the hospital boardroom, it felt less like a meeting and more like a courtroom. The long mahogany table was packed. On one side sat Henry and Margaret Lane, flanked by 2 expensive-looking lawyers. Next to them was Dr. Victor Alden, freshly shaved and dressed in a navy suit, his silver hair immaculately combed. On the other side, Aaron in clean but rumpled scrubs. Detective Navarro, calm and composed. Dr. Hale standing tall at the head of the table. And seated quietly by the door, Eric Walker, Ranger, lying beside him like a sentinel. No one said a word when Aaron entered with Ranger. His nails tapped lightly across the tile floor. His ears perked, his eyes scanned, and then he sat beside her perfectly still. You brought the dog. Henry Lane scoffed. Is that necessary? He saved your granddaughter's life, Dr. Hale replied calmly. I'd say his presence is more earned than anyone's. The tension in the room could have cracked stone. Patricia Marks, the hospital's legal counsel, started things off. This meeting is to discuss custody concerns regarding Grace Lane, the newborn, left in the care of St. Joseph's NICU. Current legal guardianship is pending investigation. She's our blood, Henry said. She belongs with her family. Detective Navarro opened a folder slowly. Jessica Lane, your daughter, left behind journals, audio recordings, and a letter naming Nurse Caldwell as her preferred guardian. That's not binding, the Lane attorney interrupted. She was unstable, clearly in crisis. Erin's voice was quiet but cutting. She wasn't unstable. She was silenced. The room went still. She went to you, she said, staring at Henry. She told you what Dr. Alden did to her, and you told her to bury it. Margaret flinched. Henry's face turned to stone. Navarro didn't blink. We've reviewed her audio recordings. Dr. Alden threatened her career, her credibility, and she named her father as someone who would take care of things. Henry leaned forward. Do you have any idea what kind of damage you're doing? My daughter was confused. Sick. Navarro closed the folder. Or maybe she was just tired of being ignored. Dr. Hale turned to Alden. Would you like to respond to the accusations? Alden folded his hands calmly. Yes, the accusations are false. I supported Jessica's career. I mentored her. She misconstrued professional boundaries. Boundaries don't usually involve threats, Navarro said. Alden smiled coldly. If she recorded anything, it's out of context. I'm sure a jury will decide that, Navarro said, equally cold. Henry's attorney stood. This meeting is about the baby, not my client's history. Erin stood as well. Grace is what this is about. Jessica wanted her to be raised somewhere safe, somewhere honest. That's not going to happen under your roof. Margaret's eyes were glassy. She stared at the floor, hands ringing nervously in her lap. She's all we have left, Margaret said softly. We just want her to be cared for. Then honor your daughter's wishes, Erin replied. That afternoon, word began to spread. Reporters were seen in the parking lot. Hospital staff whispered in break rooms. A few media outlets had already posted the story online, including photos of Ranger and the headlines. Retired canine delivers baby. Mystery turns to scandal. Nurse claims assault cover-up by prominent doctor. The public didn't know everything yet, but they knew enough. Navarro pulled Erin aside as she stepped out of NICU. They're pushing hard to get Grace transferred to Phoenix Memorial, he said. They've got a specialist lined up, claiming the baby needs treatment only available there. Erin frowned. She's stable. I know that, you know that, but the Lanes are making calls. They've even reached out to the governor's office. Erin's jaw clenched. They want to bury this, just like they buried Jessica. That evening, Erin sat alone with Grace, watching the tiny girl sleep under softly glowing lights. She looks like her mom, Dr. Hale said, entering quietly. He handed Erin a warm mug of tea. I remember Jessica as a student, quiet but sharp. She noticed everything. I failed her, Erin said. We all did. No, he said firmly. You're here now, fighting for her daughter. That counts. They sat in silence for a moment. Ranger lay on the floor beside the incubator, eyes alert. She's stronger than she looks, Erin said, watching Grace's little chest rise and fall. So is he. Dr. Hale nodded. I called a friend in Washington. There's a foundation for retired canines. They'll verify Ranger's background by tomorrow. What happens if he's claimed she asked? He was never lost, a voice said from the door. Eric stepped in slowly. He was misplaced. Big difference. The next morning, CPS returned with an urgent request. Phoenix Memorial had officially filed for transfer backed by the Lane family. Their pediatric cardiac specialist claimed Grace needed advanced monitoring Erin knew wasn't necessary. We're not transferring her, Erin said. You're not moving her into a hospital run by the man who threatened her mother. Maria, the CPS social worker, looked conflicted. If Phoenix Memorial makes a formal medical claim, they're lying, Navarro cut in. They're orchestrating a cover-up. Margaret Lane arrived moments later. She looked different, no makeup, wearing a simple sweater, hair down. I need to see her, she said. Erin hesitated, then nodded. 1 minute. Margaret stepped into the NICU and approached the incubator. She stared down at Grace for a long time, silent. Then she whispered, You're beautiful, just like she was. Erin stood behind her watching. I didn't know, Margaret said, eyes still on the baby. Or maybe I did. Maybe I didn't want to. Henry said we had to protect the family name. I didn't ask what it cost. You still have time to do the right thing, Erin said. Margaret looked up, eyes glassy. I want to help. I want to testify. Erin exhaled. Then start by stopping the transfer. Downstairs, Henry Lane was in the director's office making demands. Dr. Alden stood beside him, posture perfect, expression unreadable. When Margaret entered and placed her hand on Henry's arm, he turned sharply. "We're done," she said quietly. "No more." Henry stared at her incredulous. "What are you doing?" "I'm telling the truth." As the day unfolded, Navarro called in a search warrant for Dr. Alden's car, and it didn't take long for the forensics team to uncover a small vial of dioxin, the same substance found in Grace's bloodstream. The vial matched the batch from Phoenix Memorial, not stocked at St. Joseph's. When confronted, Alden didn't even flinch. "You can't prove I gave it to her." Navarro stepped closer. "Maybe not yet, but we can prove intent and tampering and conspiracy." A few hours later, Alden was led out of the hospital in handcuffs, his license suspended, his career over. Aaron watched from the NICU window as the storm began to gather again, outside thunder rolling in, just like the day Ranger had arrived. Later that night, Margaret returned. "I've filed a sworn statement," she said, handing Aaron a copy. "I've also withdrawn from the custody petition." Aaron nodded slowly. "Thank you." "She loved you," Margaret said. "She trusted you. That's enough for me." Grace stirred gently behind them. Ranger rose and moved closer to the incubator, standing guard like always. "You're going to make a good mom," Margaret said quietly. Aaron's eyes filled. "I hope so." As she left the NICU that night, Aaron paused in the hallway, hands in her pockets. Eric stood nearby watching. "What happens now?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Now we keep going." Ranger patted up beside her, tail low but wagging. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The air was fresh, like something had been washed clean. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but St. Joseph's Hospital was already humming. Nurses rotated off night shifts with tired smiles. Coffee carts rolled down hallways. Patients in wheelchairs waited in the early light, bathed in quiet. In the NICU, baby Grace was stable, breathing on her own, her tiny fingers curled and uncurled in slow, dreamlike rhythm. She looked almost peaceful. Aaron Caldwell stood beside the incubator, hand on the edge of the plastic frame, whispering something no one else could hear. Beside her sat Ranger Posture, still tight eyes trained on the hallway. His tail didn't wag anymore, not since Dr. Alden had been taken away in handcuffs. "He knows something's still wrong," Eric Walker said, stepping into the room with 2 mugs of coffee. "He can feel it." Aaron accepted the coffee. "So can I." By mid-morning, it was clear the storm wasn't over. Detective Luis Navarro had received word that Phoenix Memorial wasn't giving up. Though Dr. Victor Alden was in custody, the hospital administration and Henry Lane were pressing forward with their transfer petition, this time using a new pediatric specialist, to argue that Grace required ongoing treatment unavailable at St. Joseph's. "Same trick," Navarro muttered. "New mouthpiece." Their attorney had filed for expedited emergency jurisdiction, citing St. Joseph's as emotionally compromised and Aaron Caldwell as personally entangled. "Personally entangled," Aaron said, reading the filing. "They make it sound like I stole her." "You didn't," Navarro said. "You saved her." Dr. Stephen Hale entered the room with an edge to his normally calm voice. "They've looped in a medical ethics board. They're coming this afternoon to observe our care protocols. That's lawyer speak for find a reason to discredit us." "So we need to be perfect," Aaron said. "No," Dr. Hale replied, jaw tight. "We need to be undeniable." That afternoon, while Grace napped under warm lights, Aaron sat across from Maria Lopez, the CPS caseworker, in a quiet corner of the family lounge. Maria shuffled through her notes. "You've met every condition so far. You have no criminal record. You've submitted to psychological screening. And the affidavit from Margaret Lane carries weight, especially her withdrawal from the custody case." "But," Aaron asked. Maria hesitated. "They still might use Ranger against you." Aaron blinked. "The dog. They'll argue he's dangerous, unpredictable, a liability around an infant." Aaron gestured toward the NICU window. "He's been sitting guard for 6 straight days. He hasn't moved without permission. He's not a liability, he's a protector." "I know," Maria said gently, "but courts look for weaknesses, not strengths." At 3:47 p.m. during shift change, Aaron stepped away briefly to the break room. She needed 5 minutes. Just 5. 5 minutes. She returned to the NICU at 3:52 p.m. to the sound of alarms. Grace's heart monitor was shrieking. Nurses rushed in. The NICU neonatologist, Dr. Peterson, was already administering compressions with gloved hands, sweat beading on his forehead. "Code blue," a nurse shouted. Aaron froze for a half second, then ran in. "What happened?" she asked, scrubbing in and joining the chaos. "She was stable," Peterson said through clenched teeth. Then her heart rate crashed. "No warning? Just flatlined?" They worked methodically, voices urgent, but not panicked. Fluids pushed. Oxygen delivered. A second crash cart wheeled in. Erin watched in horror as the little body she'd been protecting began to lose its fight. "Don't do this," she whispered. "Come on, Grace. Stay with us." And then, beep, 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 a faint pulse. Her heart rate climbed, slowly, gently, a miracle inching its way back into the room. Afterward, the medical team reviewed every detail. Chart logs, camera footage, nurse documentation. Something felt off. Too sudden, Peterson said. No signs, no symptoms, just like last time. Navarro arrived within the hour with 2 hospital security officers. They reviewed hallway surveillance again. And there he was, Henry Lane, near the NICU, alone, standing outside Grace's room at 3:43 p.m. The footage showed him enter, stay for 47 seconds, leave calmly. "That's enough time," Navarro said. "Plenty." "But what did he do?" Erin asked. A nurse answered from the side. "There's no way he had clearance. He had to sneak past the desk." "I'm filing for a restraining order," Navarro said. "Tonight." Erin spent the night in the NICU. She didn't leave Grace's side. Ranger lay across the doorway, blocking it like a living gate. At one point, around 1:30 a.m., thunder cracked in the distance. Lights flickered once, twice. Ranger whimpered, then snapped to attention. Eric appeared seconds later. "Power grid's unstable. They're switching to backup now." In the flickering light, Erin noticed something strange, a small bulge in Ranger's collar. Something she hadn't seen before. She gently unsnapped the collar flap and found a sewn-in waterproof pouch. Inside, a folded photograph and a laminated tag. The photo showed Ranger as a younger dog, sleek, unscarred, sitting beside a young officer with a wide grin. Desert in the background. On the back, a found call, 602-555-0178. "This dog is a hero. Bring him home. Sergeant Eric Walker." Erin handed it to Eric silently. He stared at it, blinked twice, and said, "I never thought I'd see this again." The next morning brought another visitor, Judge Karen Holloway, the family court presiding over Grace's case. She'd arrived quietly without media attention, escorted by Navarro. She had a reputation, tough fare, no patience for theatrics. She asked only for a short tour of the NICU and to meet the people involved. Erin walked with her nerves shot. When they entered the NICU, Ranger stood and sat at attention without a word. The judge stopped, stared at the dog. "This is Ranger." "Yes, ma'am," Erin said. "He's been with her the whole time." The judge crouched slowly and held out her hand. Ranger sniffed, then gently placed his paw in hers. "No bark, no fuss. Good boy," she whispered. Later in her private meeting with Erin, Judge Holloway asked only one thing. "Why you?" Erin thought for a long time. "I didn't ask for this," she said. "But when that dog walked into the ER carrying Grace, everything in me told me to fight for her. Not just medically, but fully. She didn't need pity. She needed someone who wouldn't leave." The judge nodded slowly. "Thank you, Nurse Caldwell." Later that day, Dr. Hale pulled Erin aside. "We got the final toxicology back from the second crash," he said. "Same thing as before dioxin. Same dosage. Almost identical. It was intentional, precise," Navarro added. "We found trace residue on a pair of gloves in the janitorial trash bin. They're testing for fingerprints now." Erin leaned against the wall. "How many times do they get to try and silence her?" "As many times as we let them," Navarro said, "but not anymore." By sunset, Navarro had enough to act. He issued an emergency restraining order against Henry Lane and filed an attempted murder charge backed by toxicology camera footage and nurse testimony. Erin watched through the hospital windows as police escorted Henry from the premises, hands cuffed behind his back. Margaret Lane stood nearby, weeping but not intervening. For the first time, she didn't stop the truth. That night, as the hospital calmed and news vans circled like vultures outside, Erin sat beside Grace's incubator again. "She's not just a case," she said quietly. "She's not just some PR disaster or legacy. She's a little girl who deserves better." Eric nodded. "And she's getting it." Erin looked at Ranger, whose head now rested lightly beside Grace's incubator. "He's getting it too," she whispered. 1 year later, the backyard of the small single-story home in Tempe, Arizona was full of laughter. Sunlight filtered through the newly planted mesquite tree in the corner, and a picnic table was stacked with covered dishes, chili cornbread, baked mac and lemonade in mason jars. Folding chairs circled the lawn, most of them filled with people Erin Caldwell had once never imagined would be part of her life. Now she couldn't imagine life without them. Grace, now 13 months old, sat barefoot on a checkered blanket in the grass, happily smashing a cupcake into her face, while a woman from St. Joseph's cheered her on. And lying right beside her head, rested gently against her tiny foot, was Ranger. His ears twitched every now and then, but his body was relaxed. His job today wasn't guarding or fighting. Today he was simply home. Aaron, wearing jeans and a soft blue tee, stepped outside with a tray of iced tea and scanned the scene with a feeling she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the fake kind, not the kind that comes between disasters, but the kind you earn, the kind you build with your own hands. Eric Walker was helping Dr. Hale set up a cornhole board on the far side of the lawn. He moved without a limp now. After months of physical therapy and Ranger's steady companionship, he walked almost like he used to. They had started as strangers connected by trauma. Now they were something closer to family. "You okay?" Eric asked, walking over and grabbing a tea. Aaron nodded, just taking it in. "Last year we were sleeping on cots and fighting off lawsuits. Today we're barbecuing." Eric smiled. "She made it. So did you." The past year had been a whirlwind of legal battles, healing, and media silence. Henry Lane was indicted on charges of attempted murder and obstruction. His trial was still ongoing. Margaret Lane, after testifying fully, had quietly stepped out of the spotlight. But she visited Grace once a month, bringing photo albums of Jessica's childhood soft toys and gentle conversation. Dr. Victor Alden lost his license permanently. A dozen other complaints surfaced after the story broke. His silence ended the day. Evidence proved he supplied the deoxin used on Grace, illegally smuggled from Phoenix Memorial's locked pharmacy. But none of that lived in this yard. Not today. Inside the house, the walls were filled with new memories. A framed photo of Grace in Aaron's arms outside the courthouse, the day Judge Holloway signed off on permanent guardianship. A plaque from St. Joseph's Hospital honoring Ranger as the first ever therapy dog emeritus. And above the hallway, a hand-stitched sampler from Margaret Lane that simply read, "Found family, forged in fire, forever." Ranger had changed too. He still had nightmares sometimes. Thunderstorms made him nervous. But he'd learned to sleep in peace, knowing no one would pull him back into war. At the vet, they confirmed he was nearly 10 years old. His hip stiffness was manageable. His bad eye wasn't getting worse. He wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. The local news had wanted to do a follow-up segment, "The Dog Who Saved a Life." But Aaron politely declined. "This isn't a headline," she said. "It's our life." Around mid-afternoon, Detective Navarro arrived with his teenage son and a gift-wrapped package. Grace toddled right up to him and handed him a dandelion like she'd rehearsed it. Navarro laughed. "She's already a heartbreaker." Aaron hugged him. "You saved her more than once. Don't think I'll ever forget that." "Just doing my job," Navarro said, placing the gift on the patio table. "That one's for Ranger. Don't let him pretend he's too dignified for it." Inside the box, a plush police canine toy in uniform with Ranger embroidered on the collar. The real Ranger sniffed it, then laid his chin on it like it belonged to him all along. As dusk fell, the backyard lit up with string lights and soft guitar music from someone's portable speaker. Dr. Hale made a small toast, raising a soda can. "To the ones who never gave up, the baby who brought us together, the dog who led the way, and the people who chose love over legacy." Everyone raised their glasses. "Here's to starting over," he added, "and to knowing that sometimes the best families are the ones we find along the way." Later, when most guests had gone, Aaron sat on the back step, watching Grace sleep peacefully on a blanket under the tree. Ranger lay beside her, snoring softly. Eric handed Aaron a warm blanket and sat beside her. "You ready for what's next?" he asked. Aaron leaned against his shoulder. "I think I already have it." He kissed her temple. No grand gesture, just something true. Back inside in Grace's nursery, a photo of Jessica sat on a shelf next to a nightlight. In the picture, she's smiling, holding a cup of coffee badge clipped to her scrubs. Aaron had promised to tell the Grace about her when the time was right. Not just how she died, but how she lived, how she fought, how she never gave up. She wasn't weak, Aaron would tell her. She was brave enough to ask someone else to finish the fight. And Ranger, he stayed by Grace's side nearly every night. No leash, no command, just instinct. She would fall asleep with her fingers tangled in his fur. And he would sleep like he had a mission, because maybe he always would. One final thought. Thank you for following this story from the moment a tired, wounded dog walked into a hospital carrying a miracle to this quiet backyard full of life and second chances. We hope it reminded you of the power of loyalty, of courage, and the unexpected beauty of found family. But now we'd love to hear from you. Do you believe animals can sense what people can't? And if you had the chance to adopt a retired canine like Ranger, would you do it? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Heroes for Animals for more real-life stories that restore faith one paw at a time. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and hug your dog.